What's going on, guys? Illegal Defense, episode 17. Gonna get straight into some NFL action. We have the first game that we have is the Eagles versus the Cowboys. Eagles went to Dallas and they lost 34-40. What was your takeaways away from this game, and how did you think the Eagles performed?
This was a great game. Christmas Eve night. All eyes on football this day. We had no NBA games. NFL took advantage, stacked the pretty much, stacked the um, television networks with tons of games this day. Eagles Cowboys was kind of the marquee game, even though it wasn't the night game. But it worked out just fine. Was a great game, even without Jalen Hurts obviously going through some injuries and having to sit out this game. Uh, Look, we know we've been talking about the NFC East all year, how good of a division it is, how competitive it is. These are the two teams with the better records in this NFC East, and they didn't disappoint. Micah Parsons was talking a lot before the game. We had the whole Gardner Minshew, who played pretty well in past teams, get his shot to step up and see what he's made up of and run this Philadelphia offense. Back and forth game, close game. I liked what I saw from the Eagles. I think if you're the Eagles, it almost worked out as in a weird way as good as it could, considering we talked about Jalen Hurts and the MVP talk, and what would happen if the Eagles just came out and smacked Dallas with Gardner Minshew. Everyone would say, "Oh, Jalen Hurts is it's not really Jalen Hurts; it's just a
It's the
team."
Eagles team, yeah.
In this instance, we see Gardner Minshew come in. He put up tons of yards. He was able to make some plays. There were some turnovers, but he played fairly well, and the Eagles hung around in this game. They didn't do enough to get the win. This was on the road at Dallas, though, a little bit harder than what it would have been if they were the home team and playing in Philly. And they come up just a little bit short. Um, it's something where it doesn't hurt the Eagles too much. They could go win this week and kind of put put Dallas, make sure Dallas keep them at bay and kind of try to lock up that first overall seed and the division. But yeah, so they still have time to do all that. But this keeps the narrative that Jalen Hurts is the MVP alive, which I think is probably more beneficial than if they. Well, I don't know if it's more beneficial, but I would say it's probably overall a more positive thing. I mean, the thing is, I don't think you ever would want to say that you would want your team to lose per se,
Right.
but to lose a game like this without your starting quarterback, it doesn't really hurt you. In fact, you could argue that since that it was a close game and they fought hard and it was close on the road without your leader, it's something that the rest of the team can use and rely on in other situations down the road in the postseason. So I think overall it went pretty well for the Eagles. Obviously for the Cowboys, they were able to hang in there. They were down at times. They kept fighting. They stayed in it. They were able to make some plays and they were able to come away with the win late in this game. Like we said, back and forth game. Great game all around, fun to watch, and the Cowboys come out top. They kind of they needed the win to stay in contention, but it's kind of one of those things where they're mathematically not out of it, but they're probably not getting the they're not going to get the number one overall seed
Right. The division.
or the divisional. So
It's something that you could look forward to in the playoffs too. A
right,
possible playoff
right, and
matchup
so for
where
Cowboys, they can use it as okay. We look what we did to this team. We came in and we beat them. It's a little bit hollow in terms of you didn't have Jalen Hurts out there,
right,
right? So that's why for the Eagles, it's like losing this game. If they had Jalen Hurts, it'd be like, oh man, we played a tough game against them. They beat us last time. We got to get them this time. But in the
yeah,
back of your mind, you know that they beat you before. In this case, it almost doesn't count as a real loss, like philosophically in your mind, because
you
you
don't
yeah,
you
you were
know this,
playing with a disadvantage.
right?
Things weren't all equal. Everything isn't how it's supposed to be. hopefully, if these teams were to play again in the playoffs, Jalen Hurts
And
and the rest of the Eagles and the rest of the Cowboys,
yeah,
everyone's healthy or as healthy as can be, and you take in your best players and you do what you can do. So, but yeah, still look, you can't take anything away from the Cowboys. Look, they're the home team, but it was a solid win. Eagles, one of the best records in the league for a reason, and we saw why, even with a backup quarterback, what they're able to do. Gardner Minshew, as we talked about, he's no slouch either.
yeah,
He's a guy that, had the Jags not been able to get Trevor Lawrence, he might still be there as the starting quarterback.
right.
So yeah, all around a pretty good game, and one that, like you said, will be able to potentially see a rematch come
In
playoff
the
times,
playoffs.
which a game like this sets up a pretty nice narrative going forward, because if that game were to happen, we get to come back and look at this game. Oh, well, it was a tight game before. Oh, well,
Yeah.
they were at Dallas this time, and now they're going to be in Philly. Oh,
And
well, the Eagles
two,
have Jalen Hurts this time.
yeah, and
You
two
know,
starting quarterbacks because
right.
in last game they had Cooper Rush versus Jalen
Mm-hmm.
Hurts, and now it was kind of the vice versa
Yeah.
situation. In the playoffs, you have the both teams in totality, which will be able to see the full potential of both teams. So
Right.
that'll definitely it'll definitely be good to see in the playoffs. If that does happen, if both teams are able to get that matchup going, but again, we don't know what can happen in the playoffs. Anything can happen. That's the beauty of the playoffs. So